Who's your daddy? All right. Microphone check. One, twos, threes, and fours. This is the Blaze the Lion podcast. Yes, my podcast. I am your host, Blaze Doctari, Blaze Anthony, Blaze, Blaze the Lion. Yes. And other blazes that
Blaze,
frolic around Earth. Huh?
Blaze Pizza?
Blaze Pizza. Hey, I miss Blaze Pizza. Um, they're not paying for this, so we're gonna hit that out on the audio.
True story.
Mhm. All right. Welcome. We are live. Are we live? Yes, we are live. We are live right now on YouTube on Blaze Line Podcast channel, as well as on Facebook as well. Every single Tuesday, right, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So don't be late, as people are late right now. I feel like everybody was at my son's practice as they're slowly logging in.
Virtual burpees for everybody that's late.
Man, I'm telling you. We are in the month of February, and we're almost done with February already. Crazy how time flies, right? We're in the year 2023 already. Whew. So if you've been watching the pod, then you know that all month you've been talking about relationships, masculine versus feminine energy. The hell does that mean? Some people may ask. Well, stay tuned because we get into it. All right, we got a lot in store for you all. I know my guest has a plethora of experiences, of enlightenment, of advice, and I know a lot of people in the helping disciplines don't even like that word, advice. Um, and just being authentic, being real, being transparent, and as I always say, walking in your purpose. Indeed. So this is episode 90 on the Blaze Line podcast. And you know we got to do our little plugs. So if you'd like to support, you can go to anchor.fm/Blaze the Lion/support. And support. All right, give us your money at Fettuccine Alfredo. All right, we got 3 tiers right here. We have $1, $5, and $10 monthly, and become part of the team. Become a monthly contributor to the pod. All right, I'm not wearing the podcast tees because I don't like wearing them. I don't want to wear them every single Tuesday. All right, I want you to look forward to seeing me in those tees as the muscles protrude through the material. Yeah. Okay. I am sober, y'all. I am sober. 3 years. All right. Tonight's guest. Before I get to tonight's guest, as I'm all over the place, I'd like to give a shout to our sponsor, Star Child Social. If you're looking for website design, if you're looking for enhancements to your logo, just overall branding, direction with social media, or just the image of your company, well, look no further. You're in great hands with Star Child Social. And make sure you tell them that Blaze sent you so I can get credit for my referrals. Indeed. Who's calling? All right. So with all that said, tonight's guest is not a stranger to the pod. She's been on this podcast before, at least once, maybe twice. I don't recall what episode she was on, but she's been on. So research it. I'll actually tell you all before the pod is over what episode she was on. Tonight's guest is someone that I've known for over a decade, right?
Yeah. 12 years.
Oh, see? Who's counting? 12 years. 12 years. Wow. So this is somebody that I've seen her growth. I've seen bits of her journey, and I've seen her passion. She's always had a passion to help others. She's always been one to sometimes consume herself and worry of the well-being of others. Whether she likes it or not, she's an empath. Um,
Mhm.
Phil, she carries power again, not just from herself, but from many others as well. And this is someone who, man, is just on fire right now, on a mission, helping brothers and sisters, helping children, helping people in relationships, helping others in the mental health space. And she's ready to drop some gems on us tonight. So I'm excited. This is someone that I call Yamaha,
Okay.
Yamato.
I hate that one. It's like Yamato Road up in Boynton Beach.
And I think about you every time that I pass that road.
I hate
That's right.
Yamato Road.
None other than Yaima. Hold on.
It's only been 12 years.
Yaima Chirino. Chirino.
Chirino. Yaima
Chirino.
Chirino.
Chirino. That's why I call it Yamaha.
Yep.
Too complicated. Welcome to the pod. How you been?
Thank you for inviting me. I am not a new guest to the pod, and thankfully, thank you for your consideration in bringing me back, talking to your community, and just really expanding. I want to wish you absolute growth and continued development in everything that you do. Thank you for considering me. This is not so much into my realm, so I was a bit surprised, but as always, very thankful for you considering me. I can't beat that introduction, so I'll leave it at that. But thank you.
Indeed.
I'm honored to be here.
I am honored having you again.
Mhm.
So I usually give my introduction of my guests, but I always encourage my guests, feel free to share a little bit about yourself for those who may not know.
Of course. So my name is Yaima Chirino. I am a psychotherapist in South Florida. At the present time, I am a registered mental health counselor intern with the state of Florida. I have overall almost 10 years of experience working in community mental health, as a case manager, recently as a psychotherapist for the past 2 years. Um, I am very, 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 very passionate about working with children and adolescents, mostly youth that are at high risk. I do feel very passionate about what I do, although I do work with the adult population as well. My calling has been to always help. And I've always loved children. So I always felt like my path and my purpose in life after falling out of love with criminal justice, which would have been my masculine energy in my profession. Um, I really saw my light and I saw my purpose in mental health and just really helping not just the community, but helping myself. Before I can help someone else, it's very important for me to find my own truth, find my own purpose, and really understand that I too needed help. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, what else am I? Psychotherapist, mom. I have a little one that's almost 3 years old. My life and joy.
Ooh.
Yeah. I am an athlete. I am a runner. I am a CrossFitter. I am just an overall individual. I'm just a jack of all trades. I like to do it all.
A Jill of all trades.
A what?
A Jill of all trades.
I have
Jack
little.
is too masculine. Jill is more femme.
You'll be surprised. I can tend to be more of a Jack than a Jill at times, but that's okay.
I'm here for it.
I accept that. So I'm just a little bit of everything. You know, I can change my own tire. I put gas in my own car. I can do manly things. I can't do electricity. No, but I can, I paint.
Me neither.
I I mow
You
my
see
own lawn.
sparks flying when I start doing wires.
Yeah, so I'm just a lot of things, but above all, a mom, a family, I'm a very, very family oriented, so I'm a very, very family woman. Um, and just overall very passionate about my community. I don't just speak because I want to speak. I love what I do. I love mental health. I love helping people reach um, their goals, but not just that, really find themselves. I believe I'm still in my journey of finding myself. I recently began doing my own trauma work for the past year. So I am just, I'm a work in progress myself. So whomever I can help and whoever falls into my care, I can honestly just say that I will give you my absolute best.
Mm,
And that's who I am.
mm.
Yeah.
So in that, you said a couple things that I want to expound on.
Sure.
Um, One of them was, how can we effectively help others or lead others to healing when we haven't done the work on ourselves, when we're not actively working on ourselves? Your views on that?
My view is the first thing you have to do is just listen.
Hmm.
Listen. You said it yourself. You believe in purpose. I walk in purpose. It's what you always say. And as a believer of purpose, I believe that everyone that comes into your life has a purpose
Yeah.
into coming into your life. And so do you. So oftentimes we find ourselves coming across certain situations and other individuals' life stories that can really rock you, and we fail to understand that most of the times and generally we're not asking for your advice. We just
Hmm.
need someone to listen.
Hmm.
As a therapist, I've done a lot of my own self work, and I have helped a lot of people in their own self work. But I can see as I continue to grow that we're never 100% ready for someone else's story. And when
Hmm.
someone speaks to you, they're not asking for your advice. They just need someone to listen. They just want you to listen. Um a lot of the whole masculine versus feminine thing, and I know we're going to get into that later. It's
Hmm.
how men tend to just be reactive to what the woman is saying because they don't listen.
Hmm.
Women, we tend to have more of a listening ear. We're naturally more nurturing and more empathic, right?
Hmm.
So, to answer your question, right? If a person has not done their own work, what is the one thing that we can do to help others? Just listen. Oftentimes, we don't have the resources. Many people don't know about the suicide prevention hotline, but someone comes into your life, just listen. Just
Hmm.
listen. And then you're like naturally I'm an empath. So of course, if you're crying, I may cry. If you feel pain, I may feel pain. But then I'll after helping you process what you're talking about and just listening, then I'll say there's resources for that. What would you like to do with the information you've just given me? Right?
Hmm.
Just listen, guys. It really, really goes a long way, especially for the ladies in the podcast. Listen to your partners, listen to your significant others. Mothers, listen to your children.
Hmm.
Please don't invalidate your children. Despite the fact that emotions are not facts, your partners or your child's emotions are just as important as the fact that today is February 24th, 21st, right? It's just as important as that, right? So listen, listen, and listen with an opening ear. Don't listen to just rebuttal. Oh, no, because you didn't cook last night. Well, you didn't wash the dishes,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
very important to just listen and just self-validate. Understand that you may not be ready for what that person is bringing onto your ears, but God gave you two ears, right? And all you have to do is really listen. um I know I expanded too much on that, but
No, 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 not at all.
listen, just listen. If that person was placed into your life and your own journey, um they're not meant to be there for you to fix them or for you to
Hmm.
um, we don't need fixing, we need understanding, right? And I tell this to my clients.
We're not
Oh,
cars.
I'm all screwed up and I need you to fix me. I'm not fixing anything. There's
Right.
nothing to be fixed. We are all perfect within our own genuine selves. Some of us may require some management techniques. Some of us may just require some self-work. Some of us may just require some trauma work, right? But we're all perfect within our own selves. And one of the best things we could ever do is just listen. It's just listen. So for someone that has still not done their own work or has just recently began their own work, um,
Hmm.
you're not responsible for everyone's actions. You're not responsible for what someone else decides to do, but you are responsible to just listen and just provide that person an ear so they can just vent. Because you'll be surprised by just hearing someone say, I had such an overwhelming day today. Well, I'm sure it could have been better. No, just listen. Just listen. Let them expand. One of the most difficult things I've had to learn about myself with my clients is silence.
Mm.
And it is so overwhelming. It is so uncomfortable for me as an empathic therapist because, of course, I'm so quick to just jump into, okay, so let's explore because I want to help you, right? Because
Right.
initially you want to fix, and nobody needs fixing. People just need understanding. So listen, do we call your listeners like lioness and lions? Like, what do we call the listeners of the Blaze the Lion podcast? Because I want to talk to them. Like,
Blazers Freaks.
okay, I'm not saying that.
That's actually a name that somebody gave my
So to the little
followers.
Blazies and Blazers, I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know, but that's a good question. Um, what you were saying, it kind of reminds me of school, where the teacher back in the day would say, God gave you two ears and one mouth.
use it wisely.
Right?
Yeah,
So
just listen.
listening, listening,
Just listen. Yeah.
listening, absolutely. I also want to touch a bit on your experiences, right? And
Sure.
masculine and feminine. This month, though, what we haven't really touched on yet is the adolescents
Mm,
and the children, right? Because your 5 year old has a masculine side and a feminine side,
hmm
right? And I want to shine some light on that a bit. Hello, hello. I see the comments already. Yes, I want to shine some
I'm
light.
not allowed to see comments.
No, you can't see comments?
Oh, I was on the private chat. Hello.
Ah,
For
there
the
you
love of
go.
God. Hello, guys. Hello, everyone. Oh, hi. That's my sister. Hey, Yanni. Sorry. Now I'll get distracted.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, so man, well, let's start personal and then we'll branch into your
Okay.
clients and your business experience. So with your daughter, what can you share with us, things that she has said or that she has done that show her masculine side?
Oh, wow.
Mm.
You'll be surprised, but as a 2-year-old, she's very, very determined. Um, my daughter is very determined in anything she does. She's assertive. She is a young woman of power
I
already
wonder where she get that from.
at such a young age. Well, anyway, um, my daughter is she's the epitome of both feminine and masculine energy at such an early age.
Mm.
And that is because both my partner and I and my family that I'm very grateful to acknowledge their they say it takes a village. Hell, it might take more than a village. It may take a village or two.
Hmm.
And I have been thankful and just graceful enough to have the support of my family, my parents, my siblings, their partners. And my daughter is the epitome of both. And I'll tell you why. So to me, when I think about feminine energy, I think about love and emotion. I think about like the instinctive need to just be nurturing and care
Mhm.
for other people, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, I think feminine energy also has to do with encompassing aspects of elegance and femininity and charisma. That comes from like my upbringing, right?
Okay.
It's an empathic energy, intuitive energy, artistic even. I don't have that. I have everything but the artistic side. Um, and my daughter has all of that. My daughter is loving. She is in connection with her emotions. Even today, just at the playground earlier today, I mean, I don't know how much time I have. You know, I do tend to ramble.
Now go
Um,
for it.
so my daughter's a COVID baby. So, of course, we had her locked up in the house for like over a year. As I started to just gradually expose her to other children and adults and so forth, she had to learn to be herself outside of my home, outside of what I have created to be a nurturing and caring environment for her. Because at the end of the day, she was time, right? So, as I gradually started, you know, exposing her to other children and adults, I realized not too long ago that she was falling victim to like other kids' bullying. So she was being hit on, and of course, I am like, we don't hit. Let's not do that. I am trying to break generational curses or generational trauma, as many people like to call them. So I
Mhm.
do like to believe that as I walk into my own purpose, I am trying to not continue generational um, norms and rules that have been instilled in us as children. So, long story short, not too long ago, I realized she was always getting hit on. And I would say, okay, well, the nene doesn't hit, we have to be kind, we have to be nice, blah, blah, blah. But then the other day, Sunday, what's today, Tuesday? Sunday, she was the one doing the hitting. And I realized she got tired of it. She got
Mhm.
tired of being the little girl, very nurturing, very loving. Every time she sees a little kid, she wants to hug and kiss them, right? She got tired of that. And then
Mhm.
her masculine side came out. And she said, "Don't hit me." And she pushed her, right? So she was the one that said, "No more," right?
Mhm.
She said, "No more." So, she's very loving. She's very emotional. I can have a sad day, and all the moms in here I know will empathize with me when I say this. Motherhood is the most wonderful thing on earth, but it can be so challenging at times. And it is just a very, very difficult journey in its own. And I've had my challenges. I'm very open about it, my postpartum depression, my anxiety, all of that. Because what I thought motherhood was going to be, it was that, but then three times more, right?
Mhm.
So, my daughter encompasses all of that. She's very nurturing, she's very caring, she's very loving, cariñosa. So she's very affectionate. She wants to hug and kiss and, and this and that. But then to give you a little bit of more about that, she's also very powerful in the way that if she doesn't want something, she says no, very assertive. She
Mhm.
will say, "No, I don't want juice. No, I don't want rice and beans." And so, for example, Yanaiki's here. She'll tell you, my sister will want to talk to her and she'll say, "I don't want to speak to her." Very assertive. So,
Mhm.
you know, with masculine energy, I'm not saying that masculine energy doesn't encompass aspects of the feminine because I do believe we're very androgynous, right? We have both. I'm
Absolutely.
sure you can tell in myself, in my mannerisms. I'm a facial speaker, so my facial expressions speak a lot for myself. And I'm sure, well, you know me for 12 years, but your listeners may not know. But you can sense it in my voice. You can sense it in the way that I address myself that I am very much both. So, um, again, going back to not to say that masculine energy doesn't really encompass some of the aspects of feminine energy, not at
Mhm.
all. But in comparison to feminine energy, when I think about masculine energy, I think about power and control. And my daughter has that at 2 years
Mhm.
old.
Mhm.
I think of masculine energy as being assertive and standing your ground. She does that.
Yeah.
I think about being direct. She does that, right? Um, and in itself, masculine energy tends to be, if you compare it to feminine energy, it's very flexible, right? So women tend to be more flexible, more understanding, will even consider, a thing or two. Men are like,
Some,
no,
some, some.
some. So anyway, my daughter has both.
Yeah.
Daughter has also has both, but part of her masculine energy is that standing her ground, being assertive, and just having like her own power. And she'll say no, and she'll stand by it.
Mm,
And she gets that from me.
hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Isn't that awesome that at 2 years old, um, man, I mean, I can relate where I saw my son's personality, and he was doing things at 2 years old, probably at 1 years old that I was concerned about. It was like, he's a hard head, like literally. He if he didn't like what was going on in frustration, he
Mm-hmm.
would bang his head against walls and bang his head against doors,
Mm-hmm.
and he would grab pacifier and like throw it across the room, and he would have all these angry outbursts, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, what
Mm-hmm.
the hell is going on? Um, and as he's gotten older, so now he's 6, and I'm seeing the feminine side where I see his concern and the attentiveness. And when I injured myself, that was a little bit over a year ago, and I was on crutches and I had a walker. And without me even asking him, he would look back and see if I'm okay and help me get inside the house, with the walker and with the boot and just different things. And it's like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Yeah. And
so
as parents, the best thing we can do is just encourage them to be both,
yeah.
right? Because we're Latin, right? We're Caribbean American, right? And I do believe that most of us do come from very traumatic households where as children we're invalidated, as children we're told do as I say, not as I do, right?
Hmm.
And it's up to us. It's up to us to teach our children that it is okay to be empathic. It is okay for a man to have emotions and to show their emotions and to show their vulnerability,
Yeah.
just as it is very important for a woman to understand that she can be assertive and it is okay to be assertive and stand her ground.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
we should encourage our children to be both.
Hmm. This question kind of deals with relationships a bit, and I
Hmm.
know that's not really our focus, but I'm just curious. I have heard women say, um, basically they're operating in their masculine energy,
Hmm.
and so they're really direct and they're really blunt and they're really raw, and a bit controlling as well. And they say, um, basically, I'll only drop into my feminine side uh, when I meet the man that knows how to lead. Hmm. And I see that a lot as well on social media, where, but with that said, you attract, right? Who you attract, who you fall for, who you're involved with, who you're in a relationship with. That's who you attract, right? So even though a lot of these women operating in their masculine energy, right? And they want a man who is able to lead, right? So that they can drop into their feminine, right? Isn't it funny how many of those women they end up with a man who's in the feminine, and I don't know what's going on next door, but somebody's in their masculine energy.
Mm. Get it.
And it's not a man over there. All right. So, yes, isn't it funny how you'll see women that are direct and controlling, and their man ends up being meek and just very humble and like,
Well,
hmm.
I've seen that. I've seen that in many of my friendships. I've seen that in my clients. Um, was that supposed to be like a personal question for me or?
No, not. I mean, it not personal per se on your relationship,
Mhm,
but in regards to relationships as a whole.
mhm.
Um, I guess I'm a bit torn, but I also feel that it's just very interesting that some women want this alpha male, right? They want this strong, dominant man, but in many cases they end up attracting the total opposite.
Well, I'm sure that particular male also has some alpha male aspects to him. We
Mhm.
don't want like we don't want this tough, muscular guy, 6'3", 240 pounds, alpha male looking guy to just walk around and be manly all the time, right? So when we say we want an alpha male, what we want is a man that's going to stand his ground, but it's also going to be accepting of our own wants and our needs. So um
Mhm.
yes, it is very common because ultimately a woman just wants to feel secure, emotionally and spiritually secure. Women nowadays, at least from the 20s on, just want to make sure that a man can provide from them the emotional and the mental stability that their exes might not have. So, in my own personal, and I'll self-disclose a little bit because I don't care. Prior
Mm.
to me meeting my partner, and I've told him this, um, so I have been together with my partner for almost 10 years. And I have, and God forbid, him and I don't
Yo,
have.
it's been 10 years.
Yes, it'll be 10 years in August. So,
Damn,
mm, there goes the masculine side. Anyway, um,
damn.
I have always been very masculine in my relationships in terms of at the very beginning. So when you say, isn't it funny that at the very beginning women ask for this and this and this, and they end up with a man that's more in touch or walking more in their feminine side. So
Mm.
with me, what was my masculine energy? I was very assertive from the first date, from the very, very, very first date. This is me. Very important. This is my religion. I don't change it for anyone. You and I, we can date for about 30 days. You pay your meals, I will pay my meals. If after 30 days you and I decide that this can continue, we'll both get tested and then we'll be intimate. Those were my rules. And that's
You
how it.
said that?
Hell yes. Oh, am I allowed to say yes? Oh,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
okay. So I didn't break my rules. I didn't bend my rules for anybody. If Leon is on the podcast, he can attest to that.
Leon,
And
are you here?
that was
Chime in.
me. I know he's at work, so he may just be listening. He might not be able to.
Mm-mm.
Anyway, and I did that. I can proudly say that my partner is one of the very few partners that I have been with. And before him, I was single for 6 years, right? And then I met a few more men right after him, and it was the exact same thing. Whenever I would try to bend my ways or ease into my ways, what would it end up being? A waste of my time. So these are my rules. If you can attest, oh, from the first day, facts. See, I told you he's listening. So that has, and it has always been from the very beginning. Okay. This is me. This is my religion. Doesn't change for anybody, not even you. Um, this is how I stand on intimacy. This is how I stand on loyalty. This is how I stand on commitment. If you're not okay with that, thank you for the meal and you can have a great evening. Some I never heard back from. Many would say, you are a very intimidating woman. I'm just not ready. Right. And that's me. right? That has always been me. So at the very beginning of any potential relationship, I was always very masculine. I wasn't asking neither for a masculine or a feminine man, or I wasn't asking for a man walking in neither masculine or feminine energy. What I was looking for was for a man that was going to bring me the emotional and the mental peace that I needed. And
Mm,
that's him, right? Does
mm,
he have his flaws? Yes, he does. Do I have mine? Yes, we do, right? But the mental and the emotional stability that he's provided me in the past 10 years, no other man ever gave me that,
mm,
right? Was I cheated on? Yes. Was I the mistress unknowingly? Yes. Because, I we fall victim to that oftentimes, and I too fell victim to a man that was married without me knowing. And after a while, I was like, yeah, two and two don't really work, right? And then I just happened to have been called things for what they are. I was a rebound. He was taking a break from, I guess, his marriage, because oftentimes most men that are not yet walking in the right purpose will do that, right? Um,
mm,
and I was the mistress of a man that had, his life and all of that, and just needed, I guess, to come into my life to also teach me about my own self growth and my own needs to love and respect myself more, to not fall victim to that. But that's a whole nother story. Anyway, going back to what I was saying, I have always been in my relationships at the very beginning very masculine. Am I still very masculine? Yes, because I am assertive, right? But I allow my partner to do that, meaning I want my partner to be assertive. I want my partner to be in control. I want my partner to be understanding. I want my partner to be androgynous. He's here, right? Isn't he? Yeah, he's here.
mm.
I want him to be vulnerable. I want him to talk to me. And for those who don't know, my partner is Jamaican.
Hey.
So if the Jamaican population, males, you guys are not allowed to be in touch with your emotions, right?
Ra, ra.
So I love my entire Caribbean population. I love you guys all. But as a Caribbean myself, I can attest to the fact that men are not allowed to be in touch with their emotions, or at least they're told to not be in touch with their emotions. So I I've
Yeah.
asked my partner to be that. I've asked my partner not to be feminine, but to be elegant. So he has to dress a certain way when him and I go out. Even when we go grocery shopping. Leon, chime in, hun.
So you can't do
Um,
like the wife beater with like the basketball shorts?
no. And God forbid, he's never worn flip-flops out on the street, because he is a reflection of me and I am a reflection of him.
What
Sometimes I
about
go
flip
grocery
flops?
shopping.
What
Mhm.
about socks and flip flops?
No, sir. There's no flip-flops. You're not either holding my hand, walking next to me, even in a proximity that appears to be with me in flip-flops. It's just me. That's who that's who I am. Because I don't wear flip-flops outside of the house. I don't wear socks and flip-flops out of the house. I don't wear basketball shorts. I don't wear booty shorts. I don't wear gym shorts. I wear
What if you're
clothes.
coming from the gym?
I don't wear booty shorts to the gym. I
Facts.
wore leggings to the gym. I wore gym clothes outside. Yeah, absolutely. Almost every morning when I go from the gym to Publix to grab my daughter something.
Right.
But no socks and flip flops, no booty shorts, no, there's just none of that. No, no.
My queen, she makes comments sometimes, and she's probably listening.
Oh, what did she say? Come on, Queen. I hear you.
When I get so comfortable, right?
Hmm.
Granted, I don't go out in the street with like holes in my shirt or stains on my shirt or nothing like that. Um, but sometimes I'm just in my comfortable bag
Hmm.
and the socks and flip flops, and that's just been a thing that I've done, man, since I was in my 20s. And especially me being a personal trainer and I teach classes and such, and many times my feet swell and they hurt. So when I get in the car, I'm
Mm.
like, I can breathe. So remove sneakers and I insert slides. Look for shit.
Okay, so my question with that would be, if Queen dressed the same way you did, how would that reflect upon you? And this is in no way, shape, or form shaming a woman that feels comfortable in a wife beater and basketball shorts and socks and flip flops. I am speaking
I
from
don't
my.
attract women who are comfortable in a wife beater with basketball shorts, though.
So, do you want me to tell you what to do? Because this is the masculine energy I will walk in at this very moment.
Oh, you can walk in your masculine energy. Like, I don't mind.
You are a reflection of her, and she's a reflection of you. This is
Absolutely.
from my
Yeah.
own point of view.
So when my gorgeous frame holds her hand
Not as gorgeous as hers, but
with
okay.
my pecs pulsating and the sweat glistening from the workout that I just had, um, with the guns that I have on both sides of my arms, in my socks and my flip flops.
Are you comfortable?
Me? Absolutely.
Have you asked her if she's comfortable?
Hold on. What is
I
it?
mean, I don't know.
Where are these comments coming from?
I don't know. Where are they? Where do I go? I don't know. All I'm saying is my man's not allowed to leave the house in socks and flip flops. That's just me. He knows it. He's here. It's just
And
not.
and there is nothing wrong with that because I have certain things that my woman, I won't talk to a woman who leaves her house in certain things.
Yeah,
I don't know if I should be specific because it might hurt some feelings, but I don't. You're not leaving the crib in bedroom slippers. We ain't doing that. You
agreed.
got the fur babies on your toes. Those are for carpet. We ain't doing that. The satin sheet, the satin caps, or the shower caps, we ain't leaving the front door with. You know what I'm saying? So there's nothing wrong with you because I have mine. And there are plenty of women who leave the house with rollers in their hair and the satin caps and the bedroom sleepers, even though they are brand name, they're still bedroom slippers. And I'm just like, oh hell no, not on my watch.
Yeah, well, that's
So we all have, like our particulars.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And in your relationship, it should be about you and your partner,
yeah.
right? So whatever you and your partner are willing to tolerate and compromise, then that's between you and your partner, right? My partner, it's not allowed to leave the house in socks and slippers. Period.
What if he's alone by himself?
What do you mean? Like
Like
he
he's
leaves
not
the
with
house,
you. Like he's not with you.
he won't let me see him walk out in socks and slippers because if he comes back into the house and I see him, I'm gonna tell him, why did you leave out like that? Is that your representation of me outside in the streets when I'm not with you?
Hmm.
That's just me.
Hmm.
Listen, a man who is uncomfortable, a man who is uncomfortable with a woman that has a masculine energy, it's just an insecure man. And I don't mean to be offensive, but that is the very truth. A man who does not want their woman to be feminine and be attractive and be all of that, it's an insecure man. And the same goes for women. If you don't want your man to look his best outside, you're just insecure. And I
Mhm.
love what Tamiko said in the last podcast. She said, "I'm secure of myself." It takes a very insecure woman to have those issues. I don't have those issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, I am androgynous. I walk in my masculine energy when need be. I'm I walk mostly in a very feminine energy because I am a very feminine woman and I carry myself as such. But when the masculine side of me needs to come out, you best believe it's there too. I expect the same from my partner, right? I want you to be assertive. I want you to be in control, but I also want you to wash the dishes sometimes. I also want you to be okay with telling me today has been a very rough day. I feel like I'm not in control of my emotions, or I'm anxious, or I'm overwhelmed, or I'm irritated. I need a moment, right? I think it just takes, and I don't mean to sound like I know more than anybody else. I don't know more than the very next person. It's just, I have been doing a lot of my own self work. And I started some time ago, but it took my relationship with Leon to understand that I didn't love or respect myself enough to find the right person,
Mm.
right? So that was it.
This is interesting. So for Leon,
Is he even here?
what I'm curious, when does he have I guess you want to call them rules? Is there anything that you were doing prior to meeting him and he was like, yo, yeah, like, we ain't doing that?
Oh.
Did he have like any deal breakers or anything? And you're like, okay.
The biggest deal breaker would have always been my religion. Not a lot of people understand it, not a lot of people know it. But God placed a man in my life that is so knowledgeable of religion that we can make it work. The only thing he's ever told me is I respected and just respect my position on it. And that has allowed, that is what I always feared in all of my relationships. And he gave me the most peace of mind about it, right? Other than that, my sister said it. I'm not allowed to cut my hair. um,
Or
but it doesn't matter because I don't like cutting my hair, right? I have always wanted long black hair since I was a little girl. So, deal breakers. I thought my religion would have been it. It's not. At the end of the day, he's very respectful of it. Um, and he respects me for it. And that's it. He minds his business as I do mine. That's it.
hmm,
So no, I don't think so.
hmm.
If
So
I
I
think
want
of
to come
anything later on, just bring me back into another podcast. You know, I love being here.
back to
My social hour. I'm a mom of a 2-year-old, okay? A full-time mom, full-time employee, full-time girlfriend, mom, all of that. It takes a lot. So this is my social hour.
So I'm going to circle back around
Let's do it.
in this, but I do want to touch on the business side as well. Um, so in your experience with your clients, and again, like I know you work with the youth. What have you seen? What struggles have you seen in your clients regarding their masculine and their feminine energy?
Oh wow. I mean, about my youth or in my youth, um well, I still see it a lot, especially in my Cuban American adolescents, that they're not, you know, they're not allowed to be in touch with their emotions. They're supposed to just write it out.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So write it out, meaning what? Like
write it
suppress it
out.
inside?
Be a man. Be a man. Don't cry about it. Be
Yeah,
a man.
yeah.
Um, we don't talk about these things.
Hmm.
I see that a lot in my Cuban American and my Haitian American community. I see it a lot. Men are just not allowed to, first of all, they're not allowed to go to counseling. They're not allowed to seek any help. Second of all, they're not, there's a lot of stigma around, mental health in the African American community, the males in the Caribbean community. And in my adolescence, I see that. a lot. I see a lot of 14, 15-year-olds struggling with even coming to counseling because, my dad says that's for crazy people and only women go to counseling. Things
Mm,
like that,
mm.
that will really internalize a lot of issues for your child.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I see that. Um,
Do you feel like it's shifting though? Because I feel like therapists or going to therapy is gradually becoming like more accepted.
well, I will say this. Definitely after the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a very, very significant shift and huge improvements towards the normalization of mental health in not just the African American community, but the male population and just mental health overall. Yes, there was a significant shift because, if there is something that COVID taught us was, you know, we are so vulnerable people. We are so vulnerable, and our lives, your life can change from one second to the next. And if there is something that the pandemic taught us, is that change is inevitable.
Yeah.
And it's all about how you adapt to that change,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Horrible and catastrophic things came from COVID, but then also prosperous things came out of COVID,
Hmm.
right? Even the opportunity for individuals that could not seek mental health services because they had to be in person found themselves finding that support and that help through telehealth,
Yeah.
right? I
Right.
still have the majority of my clients are still telehealth because work or school gets in the way or our parents' own responsibilities and life gets in the way. But the
Mhm.
opportunity to come to session 1 to 2 times a week, they commit to that because it's their me time.
Yeah.
Adolescents and children overall are learning about self-care and are learning about the importance of validating their emotions. No, mom, I need therapy today. Today's my therapy session. We can't go to dinner. No, it's okay, right? They're learning to validate themselves. They're
Yeah.
learning to understand what it's like to feel overwhelmed and say, I need someone to talk to. Is it okay if I call my therapist?
Mm.
Right? So significant. There, yes, absolutely. There was a significant change, um, especially after COVID.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. In the males, in
Mhm.
the young males, early teens or late teens, what would you say? And you kind of touched on it, but I just want to reinforce it.
Of
If
course.
it's this or if it's something different, what would you say is the most common pressure that the young males carry?
Fit in.
Hmm.
They have to fit in. And how
Hmm.
can you fit in if you don't know who you are? What happens is as adolescents, we have to understand things from a neurological point of view, right? So the human brain does not finish developing until your late 20s, right? So adolescents
That
are
makes so much sense.
pardon?
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, so the human brain doesn't stop maturing, doesn't stop developing to your late 20s.
Is
So
that the same in the women?
yes, yes.
Hmm.
Women do tend to mature quicker, but the brain, it's the same development, right?
Hmm.
So emotional maturity, women are more in tune with their emotions. So our emotional intelligence develops a lot earlier, right? So
Right.
we because we are taught to be more in tune with our emotions, we're able to understand and develop our emotional intelligence way earlier than men can, right? So what I was saying is the brain doesn't fully develop until your late 20s, right? So what happens is get a 14, 15-year-old brain, not even 12 years old. One of the most difficult stages for any adolescent is that transition from late childhood to what we call the early adolescent years. That shift from 11 to 12, 12 to 13 can be some of the most emotionally catastrophic changes for some of my kids. It
Hmm.
has been, right? So here's what happens. The adolescent, it's told that they're no longer a child, thus have responsibilities and have certain, you know, como se dice, they have certain responsibilities
Yeah.
and things they have to fulfill. So
Yeah.
the adolescent brain is the most confused brain. Why? You're not a child, but you're not old enough to be an adult. Therefore, you are struggling with navigating what it's like to not be a child and not an adult. So what is allowed? What is acceptable? What is good? What is okay for me to do, right?
Mhm.
So, and then you also have some of these adolescents that are struggling with, like middle school. You come from 11 to 12, you're a sixth grader, but you're with seventh and eighth grader, maybe some that have repeated a grade. Their emotional maturity, right, and overall development is a lot higher than yours. So you're going to try to fit in with the cool kids on the block, aren't you? Because we've all done it, right? And then at some point, that develops some sort of disconnect from who you truly are.
Yeah.
Am I my friend? Am I my other friend? Am I the little boy that my mom tells me that I am? Am I the little boy that Jessica next door likes? Like, who am I?
Hmm.
Adolescence is a very struggling age. So, the most difficult, what I have noticed in my last 2 years of practice as a psychotherapist, and then, over 6 years as a mental health behavioral case manager, is our children, their need to fit in and understand who they are according to someone else's standards, societal standards, you know? Um, and that's one of the most difficult things that an adolescent has to go through. That's not even talking about whatever kind of childhood trauma they might have gone through. I can't even touch on that,
Yeah.
right? We're just talking about a child that has had absolutely no trauma, but it's just going to struggle with that transition from elementary school to middle school, where it's a whole different ballgame. And then the 14-year-old that has to transition into a high school with 17, 18-year-old students. Adolescence is a very, to me, and according to science, the most difficult developmental stage to go through in life, because you're not a child, right? You're expected to behave a certain way, but then you're not allowed to be an adult, right? So it's very difficult. And I psychoeducate the parents a lot on the developmental stages, on the psychosexual stages, and all of that, because it's very important to understand that your 12-year-old child, it's not going to think like the 14-year-old child. Your 14-year-old son, it's not going to think like a 16-year-old son.
Hmm.
So you have to understand these things, because our adolescent kids are constantly trying, they're constantly evolving, because they're in their hardest stage of development, because they're trying to come to terms with who they truly are, socially, sexually, and all of that. It's difficult. Yeah. The Spanish came out. I can't help it. I actually struggle a lot. Some of you don't know it. So I was born and raised in Cuba. So my native and my mother tongue, it's Spanish. So my brain always wants to talk in Spanish. So I play it out very well, but I struggle a lot. Alicia.
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
It's so it really has me pondering because, and I know that everyone's different.
mhm,
Um, my toughest years were seventh grade. I think in seventh grade, I was 13 or so. Yeah, so seventh grade and 18, first year of college,
yeah.
were like
The second most difficult. Yeah.
so new for me. Trying to fit in, trying to figure it out. Yeah.
So young adults, which is 18 to 24, right? That's that life stage. They are the second hardest life stage to go through, because now not only are you an adult, but you are held responsible for your actions,
Hmm.
right? So,
Hmm.
um, the second most difficult, excuse me, stage is the young adulthood stage, which is right at 18 and it lasts until 24. Not to get into statistics, but um, the percentage of 18 to 24-year-olds, the age range, 18 to 24-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
18 to 24 has the highest prevalence of developing emotional disorders, depression, anxiety, personality disorders, just because of that transition, right?
Yeah.
So, what happens at 18? You graduate, but then life happens. Do I go to college? Do I stay? Do I leave? I am old enough to make certain decisions, still not old enough to make other decisions, but then there are so many life changes. There
Yeah.
are so many changes that transpired at 18 years old that can bring up a lot of emotional disturbances in a young adult.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just as it does that adolescent that just finished their late childhood and it's entering their adolescent years and it just has this sense of inadequacy. Like, who am I now? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a sixth grade middle schooler, but I still have like the mentality of like a 10-year-old in the fourth grade. And
Mm-hmm.
how does that affect me? Because I have 15-year-olds in the eighth grade that have the mentality of a 17-year-old because they've been on the streets. And like, what am I supposed to do? It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
fitting in is the hardest thing for our adolescents. And it goes back to
And
what I said before. Listen to your children and validate their emotions.
yeah. Yeah. Do you feel it is the same across the genders, boys and girls, or does it differ with the genders?
No, it's a cross. I mean,
Mm.
for girls, I believe in an adolescence. I believe adolescence, and I have seen it in my practice. Adolescence is harder on girls just because of the fact that their monthly hormonal changes
Yeah.
impact their emotional well-being.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, when people say, "Oh my God, you're on your period," I mean, we're very ignorant, even in this century, in 2023, to be using certain comments like that. But oftentimes we fail to realize there are so many, there's hundreds of hormonal changes that we go through just in preparation of our menstruation, during our menstruation, and even after our menstruation, right? So, girls, young women, do go through adolescence in a much difficult from an emotional standpoint. It's difficult for girls, right? Just because they have to deal with so many hormonal changes monthly.
Yeah.
But other than that, across the board, just adolescence is very, very difficult
Mm.
across both the genders.
I wish there was a, well, I wish I was able to realize my purpose when I was younger because growing up, right, going through school, as you said,
Hmm.
what was on the hierarchy for me, what was very important for me was fitting in, right? Finding, am I do I
You
blend in
wanted to
with
be
the
one of
athletes or the nerds or the this or the that or the best dress or the cool whatever it was.
the.
And then it wasn't until I got to my 30s that I was like, yo, I need to find me.
Hmm.
I need to find my purpose and why I'm here.
Hmm.
And once I walk in me, others will follow, you know what I mean? But so
Hmm.
it's like, man, how many of our kids go through school and they haven't found themselves because it's not deemed cool to find
Hmm.
yourself? It's like, no, you
Yeah.
must belong.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's why mental health is very important
Yeah.
for our adolescents, for our kids, right? Um, I love the initiative that has been ongoing since the Marjorie Douglas
Hmm.
tragedy,
Hmm.
of just bringing more mental health support and services into the school system. I think Dade and Brower have done significantly well in doing so. I do believe more help is definitely needed. Our
Yeah.
children need help. Our adolescents need help,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, a child with trauma, it's going to grow up to be an adult with trauma.
That part.
So we have to understand that when you fail to realize that a child is suicidal, you fail to realize that this child may not even make it to adulthood.
Hmm.
When you fail to realize something is happening within this child, you're failing them. And unfortunately, one counselor per school is not enough,
Mm.
right? There's
Mm.
sources. God, I'm not very knowledgeable in politics. I wish I could because it would really make this point that much valid and strong. But if we have so many resources for other things that I believe that are not as important as mental health and our youth, um, we could really help, or we would be able to further help. Um, and we don't do that. We don't do that because it's easier to say, "Oh, she grew up spoiled," right? We don't understand why she is this way. I mean, there's just so many things that I can dwell on. But if you ever decide to do a mental health podcast, I would love to be invited back to it because that is my passion, right? The masculine energy in me would have been the criminal defense attorney, right? That my father wanted me to be, but that was his purpose, not mine, right? So I don't know. I get very emotional when we talk about kids. You always hit that weak point. Children and adolescents are just so vulnerable. I mean, not just because I'm a mom now, but I migrated to this country when I was 11. I had already gone through a lot of traumas that I didn't even come face to face with till my late 20s, and then in my adolescence, I too was, victimized all over again, and I didn't understand it, right? So if here's the way that I put it, and this is my masculine energy. If you have the ability to stay on the phone with your girlfriend, right, or with your homeboy for an hour talking about sports or talking about whatever office teammates going on, which is office gossip, you have 5 minutes of your time to sit down with your child and say, "How was your day? Are you
Mm.
okay?"
Yeah.
Because we all have time to be on social media and make a post, and so do I. That's why I get up at 4:30 in the morning every day, because I dedicate myself an hour and a half to the gym. Then I make a little post, try to be encouraging to others, because I wish someone would have been encouraging to me many years ago, right? Before falling in love with fitness and all of that. But I don't spend 3 hours on social media. I don't spend 3 hours trying to see what these people in social media are wearing or doing or saying or pretending to be doing or pretending to be saying. But I spend 3 hours or more than that a day trying to teach my daughter about emotional regulation, trying to teach my daughter is she upset? What is she angry about? Is she really feeling upset? Is she angry? Is she not? Because the moment you realize that an emotionally intelligent child is going to grow up to succeed, you'll stop spending an hour and a half on social media and spend more time to your children. And that is the masculine energy in me, because we do that all the time. We
Yeah.
do that all the time. I see it. I see it with so many of my parents. It's horrible. It's horrible how invalidating we can be as parents, including myself. I have been very invalidating to my daughter. That's why I'm doing my own self work, right?
Mm.
So listen to your kids. Listen to your kids, especially your adolescents. If any of you, I know we have, oh, hey, Caro. So Carolyn, very old friend of ours, in the gym community and all that. She has some kids, soon to be adolescents, right? I'm sure that from this podcast, she is going to understand the importance of listening to her kids, right? Alicia just became a new mom, but she herself has done tremendous work in community mental health and working with children at risk. She was actually a child advocate, and I'm not going to say where she worked, but was had over 60 plus kids under her care at a time. So
Mm.
she too, she has also worked tremendously in our community, and she can attest to the fact that the adolescent age is very difficult. Our children go through a lot. This whole social media thing, not to name any platforms, but it's really derailing our children. It's taking their abilities to be accepting of themselves because someone is telling you how you should look like. Someone is telling you how your eyebrows or your nails or your hair color should look like. And when you have to change who you are to become someone else, then you lose that connection with who you truly will ever be. It's hard. It's hard. Our kids struggle a lot, and we fail to realize that. We fail to realize that.
Agreed. Where I work, one of the many jobs that I have, or rather one of the many paths that I walk through to walk in my purpose to impact lives is I travel to schools and I help schools to raise money, basically
Mhm,
fundraising, and we go to elementary schools and to middle schools.
mhm.
And it's therapy for me because me being in these schools, it gives me reflection on how I was. And I see myself in a few of these kids, and I
That's your
can
inner child.
identify, yes, and I can identify, oh, that's the kid that all his homeboys or all his classmates are on the field playing football or on the court playing basketball, and he's on the bleachers just watching. I was that kid. I can identify. There
Mhm,
goes a little girl over there who may be a little bit overweight and she's not cool enough to be on the volleyball team or the cheerleading team. And
mhm.
she eats her lunch at that table by herself every single day.
Well, I was never by myself, but yeah, I was that overweight girl with a lot of self-esteem issues and yeah, yeah. And
I see it. I see
your
it.
work is, the work that you do with these kids, Blaze, it's amazing. It gives you the opportunity to heal your inner child. And that is why I am passionate about working with children and adolescents because I too was a very broken child. I too needed to heal. I too needed to get better. And I do that. I can't help every child or every adolescence that comes under my care, right? I can't. And that it's one of the hardest facts because it's not an emotion, right? It's one of the hardest facts that I've had to come to terms with the fact that I cannot help all of them. But
Yeah.
my promise to them is that I will always try my best while they're under my care.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's an inner child inside all of us. We just fail to
Hmm.
realize it, right? And
Hmm.
oftentimes what we find it's triggering, it's not really triggering us, but it's triggering that child inside of you.
Mm.
Yeah. But that's just a lot of trauma work. And I that would take me hours to help. But I have known you, and you started out the podcast with the fact that we've known each other for over a decade, 12 years to be exact. I know a lot about your childhood. I don't know many things about your childhood, but the many lots that I do know, um, I can honestly say that inner child is has done a lot of growth and healing, and it reflects not just in the work that you do today, but in the way you carry yourself. It reflects in your relationship. It reflects in the way that you passionately want to protect others too. So I'm glad you've reached this stage in your life where we can have that conversation.
Yeah. That's why my hair's so long. Yeah, it's definitely a journey, and this podcast, even though it has my name on it, right? It's Blaze the Line podcast. Um, Many times this is therapeutic for me. Many times I will have guests on here to drop gems on the audience, right? And to help the audience to walk in their purpose and to remind the audience of how powerful they are and all these things. And we highlight different industries every month and we have our themes and all of this. But there have been countless times where my guest is speaking to the audience, but they're speaking right to me. And I'm like, ooh, hmm. Right. So we're as you mentioned, we're all on this healing journey, and never give up on your healing, as uncomfortable as it can be,
Mm-hmm.
to go back. And I've done posts on this where, sometimes it's necessary to go back, not stay in the past, not stay there, right? But sometimes you got to go back to those dark places, for clarity, for strength and such. And whew, those childhood years, uh, they're real pivotal.
Absolutely.
They're real pivotal.
It all starts in our childhood.
Yeah. And no matter how you grew up, right? It doesn't matter if you grew up with the silver spoon and your parents were wealthy, or you was in the hood and your parents were struggling, or you had just your mom or just your dad, or you were raised by your grandparents, or whatever it is. As a child, at how we perceive things, right? And even if your parents are doing the best that they can, just doing what they know, right? They still end up dumping right, their views and their perspective, and ultimately trauma, that as we grow up we have to sift through. Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah, definitely is a lot.
Yeah. um Man, so in closing, whew, for our listeners, whew, what quote, what phrase, don't fall, sorry, what quote, what phrase, what words can you share? I feel, to those parents, where maybe they're just having challenges, they're having a hard time, with their kids, and their kids are going through different phases and different transitions. Um, and sometimes, as parents, we feel alone. We feel like we're stuck, and no matter what we do, we feel like our work is in vain.
Well, it's very common to feel like that because the biggest fear of a parent is to lose their child.
Hmm.
So that is a constant reminder that we parents have, both men and women, right?
Yeah.
What happens if I don't say the right thing? Or what happens if I say the wrong thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, but like I said earlier, listen to your children. Listen. Your kids will lie, your kids will manipulate, your kids will disobey, and your kids will give you a hard time. But they're really shaping you also as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can leave you with one thing is, and it may not apply to everyone just because, our adolescents all go through very different things,
Yeah.
right? So of course, parent A may not be going through the same situation as parent B, but if I can leave you with this is be the parent you wish you had
Mm-hmm.
when you needed it. And that will give you the opportunity to be a more open, a more empathic, and a better parent.
Mm-hmm.
Leave your parents' mentality aside. You're not your parents. Because in itself, and I can see most of us here are in our late 30s, 40s, right?
Chill,
Our
chill, chill,
parents, ¿qué
chill.
pasa? I embrace my 37s. Okay. I'm okay with that. Anyway,
I'm reverse aging now. I'm back in my 30s.
you know, we have to understand that just like we're doing our best, our parents also tried their best. And
Yeah.
their parents tried their best. And then
Yeah.
their parents tried their best. So I'm going to steal your quote, walk in your own purpose. But when it comes to your children, Be the parent you wish you had at that moment and listen to your kids.
Mm.
Because if you're not the person they need at the moment they need, if you're not the support your children, and this is going to hit some of you, well, some of my former clients were supposed to be listening in, but whatever. If you're not the person your child needs at a point in time, they're going to find that guidance in the wrong place just because you couldn't listen to your child, just because you couldn't be flexible and say, you know what, I'm going to listen to him because I shouldn't come from a do as I say and not as I do mentality. I should actually listen to my child.
Yeah.
Because your child will turn around and find in the wrong hands what they were trying to find in you.
Mm.
And a broken child will become someone else's victim.
Mm.
So be very careful. That's all I have to say. That was a lot. That was a lot.
Yeah.
That's
It's
what happens when you do trauma work all day. You know, you become so trauma focused, and as you know, as passionate as I am, it's just things just can't go on deaf ears when it comes to me.
no, but it's necessary.
I love what I do.
It is necessary. And on this pod we are live, right? On YouTube. So for the viewers, unless you all comment, we can't tell who is watching, who is viewing, and we're on multiple platforms live, right? So we're on Facebook and as well on YouTube. So there are many listeners who watch who don't comment, and I have no idea that they were watching this live until they text me like, "Hey, so what your guest said, blah blah." I'm like, "Oh, okay,
Mm.
right." So the other day I was uh, So, for example, sometimes a lot of my family members will be watching, and sometimes I forget or I don't know until a cousin or an auntie or uncle was like, "Hey, so about that episode," I'm like, "Oh, oh, damn, okay." So you just never know. This right here was episode 90 of the Blaze of Lion podcast. The replay of this episode will be available on YouTube as soon as we end this live broadcast. All right. The audio version, which is available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and all that. We're streaming in 33 countries, I think.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The audio version will be available
So
in
can I
about
say something
24
in
hours.
Spanish for like our listeners and I don't know in like
Now we got people.
or
Yeah,
something?
go ahead.
No, I was kidding. Welcome. Bienvenidos. Bienvenido. Bonjour.
Yeah. I truly want to thank you. And there's always more with us, right? There's always more that I would love to get into. Um, but I know we all work. We all got kids to put to bed. Hopefully your kids are already put to bed. And we got hectic schedules and but man, sometimes I would love like a 3 hour episode and just
Me too.
mm, and just get it in. I think maybe in the future, on some special occasions, I may need to do like an earlier pod and we just get into it. So, but what was said was definitely authentic, was definitely necessary. And sometimes it hits harder on the replay. So I'm here present in the moment as the host of this podcast. And then tomorrow when I go back and I listen, I'm like, ooh,
Mm.
oh, ah, okay. So, and these are timeless, right? So, man, I mean, they can hit you 1 month from now, right? So, this is a platform that that we use here, that there are no limitations on who it reaches. So I am grateful for these virtual platforms where we're able to reach the world, right? And you're able to help people who you can't even put a face to, but just understand, or rather just overstand that you are impacting lives bigger than you know. So the experiences and the expertise that you brought in tonight's episode 90 have gone far and will go even further. So I want to thank you again.
Thank you for inviting me. And thank you to the listeners. I'm not very tech savvy, so I wasn't able to see all the comments and the feedback, but um I really hope that everyone listening had an opportunity to just grab something out of it. Um and if not, just give yourself the opportunity to just actively listen to someone else's perspective, right? Because we mature with age, and someone else's perspective can actually enlighten a lot about
Oh,
um,
yeah.
our own situations. It's all about enlightenment, right? So I truly hope that all of you listening now live, or tomorrow as we replay. I love the number 90. That's my mother's favorite number, and this whole time I am who I am because of her. So how lucky am I to be on episode 90? I love it.
Ooh, ooh.
But going back to that, I truly hope that everyone listening is able to take something from today, and whether you're a parent or not, aunts and uncles were secondary parents to our nieces and our nephews, or even just a friend. I mean, I had the privilege of, you know, um, raising my brother as my own, but even some of my friends' children that I've had the opportunity to just spend time with. It's a huge responsibility that you have as a parent or as a caregiver at a particular time. Take this opportunity to just give yourself a pat in the back for doing your absolute best, because that's all we can do. And then from today forward, just try to work a little bit on your own enlightening, right? On how you can be better, on how you can be a better parent to your child, especially your adolescent child, right? And it's never too late, right? It doesn't matter if you're 47 and you have a 26-year-old, it doesn't matter. It's never too late to be the parent to your child that you needed.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's all.
Indeed. Shouts out to the chat. Shouts out to Bizzle. Shouts out to Jackie.
Everybody.
Shouts out to Color Purple. Color Purple, what up, though? Ain't seen you in like a decade. Patrol number 2.
Oh my
Oh,
God, I
yeah.
was getting all those now. Oh, that's
Mm.
Chisel, no?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 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 Shout out to Auntie Betty. Family is over here. All of
Hola,
that. All of that.
familia.
Yes, 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 indeed.
Mama Duke's watching.
Oh, yeah. All the
Hola,
time, all the
mommy.
time, all the time. This was the Blaze the Line podcast. As I always say, peace and love.
Bye, everybody.
Don't wipe them tears. Let them flow. Let them flow.